Hello, all you failure frauds out there. Today we look at 1991's Ruben and Ed, which features an especially strange role from Crispin Glover. So strange, in fact, it ended up getting him kicked off of Letterman and never asked to return. Seriously, just Google Crispin Glover on Letterman and watch this video, just to get an idea of the insanity that he is bringing to the table. So throw your dead cat in an icebox, and let's journey to the realm of the shadow people. This is Crushed Celluloid. Today we are talking about 1991's Ruben and Ed, and give me a minute to get this one out. I've been preparing this not very well, but it's a cognitive a thought experiment I was doing about the movie. So it's like, who's afraid of Virginia Woolf if the two lead characters were an autistic kid and a man going through a midlife crisis, or no, I guess on the other side of the midlife crisis, mixed with a John Hughes movie. That's how I would describe Ruben and Ed.
Well, I have to say that is more prepared, thought out than anything I had, or anything I could even ever hope to say about this movie. So I'm gonna let it ride. I'm not completely with the John Hughes-ness of it.
It's more in the sound cues and how it'll randomly kind of go into this slapstick mode.
Yeah, a little bit of that, but honestly, and especially like the fantasy like mirage scene that Crispin Glover has later in it, that reminds me more of like Savage Steve Holland, like a Better Off Dead or One Crazy Summer kind of thing than it does like a John Hughes thing. But that's still like the same vein of movie.
Yeah,
and I try to like find like background about this movie to talk about. I got fucking nothing, man. All I know is that IMDb, it had like a 7.5 and it had an 88% audience on Rotten Tomatoes.
Damn.
Yeah, and it was written and directed by a guy named Trent Harris, who has done other stuff I've never heard of, but he did do a movie called Plan 10 from Outer Space, and I really want to watch that.
That does sound good. Yeah, you told me about that one. Yeah, this movie, it's not available on DVD or any sort of, like, you can't even you can't even watch the widescreen version as far as I know. Like, well, it has to be Letterbox.
I think this guy Trent Harris has a website. You might be able to get a DVD directly from him. But as far as I saw, it's only like VHS. I watched a VHS cut of it.
Yeah, me too. Like I mean, there was a YouTube, and I was like, maybe I can find a better one. And I went to a torrent site, and essentially, like, in the comments, there's like, yeah, you can't, like, it's a shitty VHS rip, but you can actually get it from this guy if you email him directly. And like, so, and they were talking about the director. I was like, that's wild.
He has a website where he does like sell DVDs of his movies and stuff. So I guess he specially makes them if you order them.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense, because I have never heard of this movie.
Me neither. And it stars Crispin Glover, who I'm a big fan of. I really like him a lot.
He was awesome. This movie, he was so great as whatever the fuck he's trying to do. And I found out about this movie from a YouTube video of him playing his Ruben character on Late Night with David Letterman, and David Letterman not getting it and getting really pissed off and kicking him off the show.
Yeah, and it's funny, awesome. Actually, in the YouTube video that I watched to watch this movie, that clip was at the end of the credits. Like, they added that in
awesome.
there. Yeah,
I'm sure that's the only reason people are going back and watching this movie anymore, because I mean, I guess we weren't around, so who knows if it was even notable in 1991 when it came out.
Well, probably not, because it seems like I'm not sure if David Letterman mentioned Ruben and Ed when he was bringing Crispin Glover out. I know he mentioned River's Edge, which was a movie he had just been in with like Keanu Reeves and stuff. So he came out in his Ruben character, and I guess David Letterman didn't know what was going on. I don't even think the movie was released at the time. So,
I could see that.
Yeah, so he comes out and does his character, and he almost kicks David Letterman in the face with his platform shoes. And David Letterman's just like, I'm leaving, guys. I'm gonna leave now.
But fuck this guy.
He just walks off, and then he comes back, and he's like, so Crispin Glover had to leave. He had to go catch a taxi.
Yeah. And apparently Crispin Glover has never been asked back on the show since then. That was his last time on Letterman.
But it's kind of brilliant that he did that, because he was very much in the character. And again, I just thought it was weird when I watched the video before watching the movie. Now it makes complete sense now that I've seen the movie.
See, I think I feel like he built this character more than it ever needs to show in the movie, because he's talking about like he gets all heated when he's talking about those newspaper clippings and stuff on the Letterman interview, but in the movie he almost barely ever gets excited. He
gets mad. He has some anger issues because he gets mad and then he kicks shoes at people.
Yeah, but he never gets exasperated to that point where he was on Letterman. Like, I feel like he built this whole world around this Ruben character just for these few times that he was actually going to use it. Like,
well, Crispin Glover is method. We know this.
He is an insane man. He does weird things, and it's amazing. Yeah. And this movie is one of his amazing and weird things.
Yeah, and it's weird because thinking back on the movie and even thinking about it while I was watching, pretty much nothing happens in this movie. No. But it's, I don't know. I really enjoyed it. Like,
yeah, no, it's I love the dialogue. It definitely, like, for a while I was thinking this was a stage play that they just filmed. Like,
no way.
No, like, that's just when they were in his mother's apartment talking about the dead cat. I was like, is this gonna be the whole movie? Because I could totally see this, like, just these two arguing in an apartment about going to the seminar.
Yeah, but there's a lot more to it, yet there's absolutely nothing more to it at the same time. No,
like I said, it's an autistic boy and a loser nearing the end of his life. Not the end, but this loser salesman guy, and it's about their journey through a desert to bury a dead cat.
Yeah,
that's the film in a nutshell.
Pretty much. That's the best description you can give, because that's pretty much all it is, but there is a lot more in it, but pretty much all revolves around that. There's just a lot of nothing going on.
Yeah, so let's get into... We start off, and we leave off almost the same place, but the opening is
I will say before the opening, though, something I did really enjoy about this movie was the score. Like, even just from the opening when it was in black and the credits were coming up, I really dug the score. It kind of reminded me of, like, a Danny Elfman, like, early Tim Burton, like a Pee-wee's Big Adventure kind of score, almost.
Yeah.
And I looked up the guy that did it. His name's Fred Myrow, and he did the scores for the first 3 Phantasm movies and for Soylent Green. But I don't know, it kind of reminded me of, like, an early Danny Elfman score, and I was really digging it.
Yeah, it's weird, and it has this instrument that almost sounds like a rubber band in the background.
Yeah. But then the movie opens, and it's The Wolf of Wall Street.
I think that's where they got their influence from. It's just it's a seminar. He's just screaming success, and they just mirror everything he says. So, like, success, money. And he's like, and how do we get there? And Ed's the only one that speaks up. He's like, work.
He's like, no, real estate.
Yeah.
I love how he's taking notes during the seminar, though, and he's like writing it down, and then he's like, who are you? And the guy, Ed, writes down, who am I?
And it's also on the button.
I want one of those buttons really bad.
Yeah. It's not even, it doesn't even have a question mark. He doesn't, like, no one writes question marks in this.
No, it's just who am I? Statement.
Yeah.
Oh, but by the way, originally the guy that plays Ed, his name's like Edward Hessman or something. Originally that was supposed to be Peter Boyle. But apparently he dropped out of filming at some point in time, and they replaced him with him. But I can't help it. The entire way through the movie, I kept thinking about, like, what Peter Boyle would have been like in this role.
I bet he would have been awesome. I could definitely see that guy was sort of supposed to be a Peter Boyle. Like, I think it would definitely come off much more dramatic. Like, this movie,
I don't know, because he can do comedy and kind of slapsticky stuff as well. I think the guy that played Ed, Edward Hessman or whatever, I think he did a great job. But I kept thinking, like, I kept thinking that Peter Boyle would have done a much better job.
Yeah, and it's Howard Hessman.
Howard Hessman, my bad.
It's something with an H, because I just remembered. I saw it as like, oh, kind of like Herman Hesse, just inverted.
I just knew it was Hessman, and I guess I'm saying Edward because his character's name is Ed. I don't know.
That
Mr. Hessman.
Mr. Hessman. He does quite a fine job, but I don't know. Everything is
awesome hairpiece, by the way, throughout the entire
film. Awesome hairpiece.
Amazing that it stays on his head.
Like, this movie it seemed to kind of fluctuate. Like, it seemed so dramatic at times, and then it would just get off the wall for these crazy moments, like, especially involving the ex-wife at the very end. Like, just, this movie gets wild. But after this meeting, and essentially Ed is part of a seminar pyramid scheme is the best way I think I could describe it, and
they basically treat it like a cult.
Yeah, they call it the organization. Like, everyone just refers to it whenever they refer to it as the organization, and it's really weird, but I like how it's just never really addressed fully what this thing is. It's just this weird conglomeration of bullshit seminars that just tell you things you already knew, and then also a pyramid scheme where you have to get other people to come to these things. Well,
that's the thing that's funny, is that the whole time, like, he's making him repeat, like, oh, I'm a good salesman and stuff like that, but he's not actually selling anything. He's just trying to get people to come to a seminar. That's his job. It's
really it's more representative of the idea of these things than it is actually anything concrete about any of these things.
About how they actually work.
Yeah, about how to, like, about salesman seminars or about pyramid schemes. Like,
well, yeah, exactly. I think it used it more as like a satire, just like as like a catalyst for the story, more so than an actual pyramid scheme.
Yeah, definitely. And then we meet Crispin Glover.
Which, best introduction ever. Immediately from his first 10 seconds on screen, all I thought was, I love Crispin Glover and his crazy sex fantasies.
It's weird, like, at first it looked like it was coming out of, like, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, like, this whole girl in a bikini in the water, and he's just kind of, like, watching her, and and it's weird, and you'll notice the first thing after he's looking at that, after he looks at the picture of his cat, his hands are, like, directly in his pants, so he kind of looks like he was playing with himself or something.
A little bit. I did notice that. It almost looks like he was trying to, like, hide his awkward boner or something, or like he was playing with himself. But I love the fact that he's doing that, and he's staring at a poster of a woman in a bikini. He has this weird little sex fantasy about her, and then he's just like, yeah, that was good. And then he just pans down to a picture of his cat, which, by the way, the cat in this movie is not any kind of a real cat. It's almost like a claymation cat or something that they use in pictures and fantasies.
Oh man, it just has these huge eyes, and you're just like, what the fuck is that thing? Like, I could not for the life of me figure out what that was supposed to be at first. I was like, that looks kind of like a monster or something, like something you'd find deep in the jungle.
Or something in like a, children's Bible animated story.
Yeah, like very ridiculously oversized eyes, like Disney-fied eyes.
Yeah, but we find out Crispin Glover's character, Ruben, basically lives in a motel room where his mom is the manager of the motel, so he gets a room.
Yeah.
And he just has like this messy, tiny little room that just has shit stacked everywhere, clothes thrown everywhere, and he doesn't go outside. He just stays in his room, and he listens to classical music, and he plays with a squeak toy.
No, specifically, he listens to Gustav Mahler.
Yes.
and he squeaks a little cat mouse toy along with the music and just kind of does a sway dance with it.
Which
and it's adorable.
It is adorable. But his mom gets on his case. She's like, you need to leave the house and make a friend.
She mostly doesn't want him to squeak the mouse anymore. That is her very pertinent thing about why he needs to get out and make friends, because he will not quit squeaking the goddamn mouse.
Well, which is weird, because when it started, like, he plays the music and you think like, oh, she's annoyed because the music is too loud. But then she goes up there, doesn't even mention the music. She's just like, stop squeaking that damn mouse toy. It's so loud.
Oh, awesome. And then we go to this weird scene where...
Wait, I will say the thing that transitions to the scene is she's like, well, if you're not going to go make a friend, at least take out the trash. And then it comes to him throwing away the tiniest trash can imaginable that just has like 3 things in it. And it's like, that is taking out the trash.
He comes off as just he is an autistic kid. Like, before autism was really a huge, like, thing, like a present thing. But after he takes out the trash, there's this kid with a mullet who's essentially like, hey kitty, hey kitty, like, just doing this weird thing, and Crispin Glover just gets this really pissed look at his face, and then all of a sudden he just kicks off his platform shoe at the guy, and it hits the stop sign. It's like, oh shit, I'm out of here.
Yeah, he runs away like he was absolutely frightened. And Crispin Glover can kick a shoe like nobody's business. But it's weird because it's almost played in a way to where, like, Crispin Glover's character and the other guy's character are supposed to be like kids or something. But that guy was obviously like in his late 20s to early 30s, and the character of Ruben, it's never stated how old he is, but he could be anywhere from like 16 to 35. We really don't know.
Yeah, and he looks like he's straight out of the 70s. Like, he's dressed in like an elderly woman's blouse. He's wearing like one of those that were popular in the 70s. He has platform shoes on and not bell bottoms, but not far away.
No, they're bell bottom pants.
Oh, they are
with a weird
bell-bottoms?
like stripy design on them and stuff.
Yeah, and he has this long hair and these big rimmed glasses. Like you go look up a picture of this man. It's amazing. He looks a fool, and I forgot that this movie was 1991 for the longest time because I kept seeing Crispin Glover like that and the shitty quality of the VHS tape. I was like, this movie could be from the late 70s.
Basically, I think what happened was that Crispin Glover went and auditioned for Dazed and Confused and didn't get it. So he just kind of kept his costume on and just walked over to Ruben and Ed and got the role immediately.
I could see that. He's like, I prepared this character for months. I am not losing it.
It is going to get into some movie somehow. What's the character's name? Ruben? All right, got it already.
You know what? We're changing the title of our movie, man. Okay, so after we see his weaponized stilettos, we go to Ed talking to his wife for the first time on the phone, or his ex-wife, and they had these really insane conversations, kind of, and like his ex-wife is in the same vein as the organization, that she's just kind of a stand-in for all the ideas of an ex-wife more than she's actually a fleshed out character, because every time he talks to her, she's
I think she's actually one of my favorite parts of this movie, just because she is just sprouting out bullshit that doesn't make any sense about his problems and about his problems and shit like that.
Yeah, well, that's all she ever says. Like, every time you call her, she's like, you know what your problem is? And like, but no one's brought up that anyone has any problem at this point. That's her all of her lines only revolve around him having problems or someone else having problems.
Well, also she has several like mispronunciations of words that just crack me the fuck up every time.
Yeah, I noticed a couple of those throughout the movie, just random things that people would mispronounce. I didn't notice hers though, actually.
But honestly, okay, so Crispin Glover is forced to make a friend, pretty much.
Oh wait, before this, and after he gets off the phone with his wife, he walks out and a man barks at him.
I was going to mention that, but I didn't think it was that important. But yes, I loved it. He just barks like an angry dog.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, this man barks at Ed like he is an angry dog. Then we go back to Crispin as
it's like a janitor or something. I think he was standing there with a little janitor cart.
Yeah, very strange. And we go back to Crispin Glover and his mom freaking out once again about the mouse. And she's like, no more Mahler until you make a friend. And so
not only make a friend, but make a friend and bring him to dinner the same day.
Yes, because that's an easy feat to accomplish.
But then we get to see that Crispin Glover has the best friend-making technique ever. He basically goes downstairs from the motel and to where some older lady is just kind of sitting by the pool, I guess, reading. And he just sits in a chair a little bit away from her and slowly scoots the chair over to her. And the first thing he says to her is, I want you to meet my mother.
And she fucking bolts. She just runs away from him.
No. Best friend-making technique ever.
It was awesome. It was totally awesome. And so after this failure, Crispin goes down to, I guess, the local office park where Ed happens to be trying to find people to go to the seminar. And this is why I brought up the barking, because the one of the people we hear asking,
he kind of barks a little bit too.
No, he growls at him. Yeah. I was like, why are people making dog noises at this man? Like, what is happening?
I kind of thought that was going to be a thing, that like anyone outside of our main characters were just going to be like animals or something. But no, that doesn't really happen. Like, no. It happens those 2 times, and then it isn't really revisited again.
Yeah, really strange. Really fucking strange. This is definitely, like, I would imagine this director is kind of an Art Nouveau kind of person, like a modern art type person. Like, you could almost feel it slipping into this very pretentious modern art kind of.
Almost, but if it weren't so goddamn adorable and cute, and it feels like it has heart. Even though, like, nothing really happens, this movie has heart.
Yeah, no, it does. It was, the director towed the line very well. It was always just about to get to the point where it seemed like it was up his own ass, but it never got to that point.
It kept almost seeming like it was just weird for weird's sake, but it kept coming back and just like having little actual character moments where they reveal something about each other or something, or they actually show some emotion between each other, and it kind of saved it.
Yeah, and did very well. And so Crispin Glover essentially gets Ed to agree to come pick him up, to take him to the seminar so that he can introduce him to his mother so he can get his music back. And then we get to see Crispin Glover at his mom's apartment acting absolutely insane.
It's wonderful. Like, I would have been freaked out that he was a serial killer and that he was about to kill me the way he was acting.
Yeah, definitely. So he pretty much lets
he's like completely ignoring him at first until Ed picks up the mouse squeaky toy, and then there's this really awesome shot that's almost kind of like an Evil Dead style shot of like the evil moving through the woods, and it just like moves towards his hand and he just swipes it, but he doesn't say anything. He just walks off with it and starts playing with it on the couch.
I love that Ed's like, "Can I get some water?" And he's like, "No." He just stands there. It's like, "Well, I guess I'm gonna go. Just stay. You come to our kitchen, have some water." It's like, oh, if it takes water to get you to stay. And when Ed tries to get ice for his water, because Crispin Glover just kind of puts a cup on the table and walks away.
Oh, because the phone rang. That's what happened.
Oh yeah, the phone rang. And so he decides to get some ice, and he opens the freezer to discover there is a dead cat in the place where ice should be.
Well, it's weird because he actually picks up the cat and brings it out before he realizes that it's a cat, and then drops it and starts screaming.
Yeah, and then Crispin Glover comes out, and he is absolutely enraged. Just like, do you just go into other people's houses and start going through their refrigerators?
Why don't you stay away from people's refrigerators?
Yeah. Oh, awesome. And this is where it starts to feel like it's going to be this weird back and forth play, because they sit across from the table with each other and just have this weird talk about...
Yeah, honestly, it could have stayed in this one little room with them talking, and this could have been a stage play.
Yeah, like the dialogue could have easily been transferred into this kind of setting. And,
it would be like David Mamet, age 15 or something. Right?
Yeah, it would. It would have been a whole lot of things that seem very deep, but none of them really are. Like, for as deep as this movie tries to seem like it's making it, the dialogue is borderline inane. Like they could be making wild grunts at each other, and it would make just as much sense. So essentially, Ed just starts harping on how he needs to bury his cat, and Ruben does not like that he's talking about his cat. and he's essentially like, okay, I gotta go. If you're not gonna go to the seminar, and he's like, but I could go take you to bury your cat, but we'll just stop on the seminar on the way there. And he's just like, but it'll defrost. And he's like, well, we'll put it in an ice box. And he sits there for a beat. That's a great idea.
You could see he actually, like, I respect this guy for the first time since I've met him. Like, he had a really good idea. But I just love Crispin Glover explaining why the cat's in the freezer during this scene as well. Oh, my cat died. It's like, well, why is he in the freezer? To keep him fresh until it's time for me to bury him until I find the right spot.
Yeah, I love that everyone is so stupid. Like, whenever that he reacts to people as if they're saying the stupidest thing in the world.
It's like, well, duh, I put my cat in the freezer so it'll stay, fresh and not decompose until I find the proper spot to bury him at. What are you, 5?
Yeah, and the guy... Oh man, and the guy, Ed, the whole time is just trying to sell this seminar. I love it. He just keeps trying to sell. He's like, you set a goal and obstacles become opportunities. Like,
I really love Ed's anger issues throughout the movie, like especially in this opening scene at the table. I just love the fact that Crispin Glover really just gets under his skin. Like everything he says and does just really irritates him to the point where he just has short little outbursts where he's just like, you fucking asswipe! And then he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. Because apparently that makes everything okay. Every time he has an outburst, he's just like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. And it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if that was supposed to be, because you start the whole movie the whole time with at first he's going to the seminar, then he's listening to a tape, like, you are a great salesman. Like, maybe we're just... I'm not sure if we're supposed to believe he's actually a good salesman and like he's finally come across somebody who can't sell it. Well, he's not, because he's broke. Yeah. But
no, I think he is a horrible salesman, but he's part of this pyramid scheme.
Yeah, and Crispin Glover is just this wall that he cannot cross because there's just no getting through to this kid. and
it's almost like Crispin Glover's character has Asperger's. Like, that's kind of how he just has no idea how, like, social settings work or what is okay or not okay to do or say, because he's just he's in his own little world, and he's just on his own little mission no matter what is happening.
Yeah, and it makes absolute sense to him. Yeah. Even though no one else understands.
Well, because even when they agree to, like, okay, we're going to go to the seminar and then we're going to go bury my cat, he just basically kind of almost steals the car. He basically pulls like a little Albert Pune Captain America and just like runs around the car and jumps in and steals it. And then he's just driving, and we don't even know what age this kid is. Like, so I was like, I guess at least 16 because he knows how to drive. But
well, I mean, I guess he does. But yeah, and so he essentially steals the car, and I love that Ed is just so passive about the whole thing. Like, he barely gets to jump in the passenger side. He's just like, yeah, you can drive. I don't even like driving. Well, it's just more work for you to do, buddy. Just more work for you to do.
Yeah, he makes it play like it's for him. So I guess this works out better for me anyway.
Yeah, it's such a strange moment. Loved it. And they stop and get beer, and Ed starts getting drunk. And I love that this is also a movie of casual littering. Like, every once in a while, they're just very
I thought that was going to
litter.
be like a thing with the movie, but it wasn't at all. Because it made big hubbub about him throwing the beer can out the window and it sailing into the desert and then falling and then slowly leaking.
Yeah.
And it's such a big moment, but it means absolutely nothing. I almost expected to see an Indian crying on the side of the road when he did that.
Yeah, I was like, what's about to happen? Is this about to go to some weird, insane, like, one of those 60s, like, Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, where there's just, like, this weird acid freak out in the middle of nowhere? Then we're going to get back to the movie? Nope. Just
absolutely nothing.
Just had to watch that beer can fly real quick. This needs to be here.
I think if anything, that was just to show that he didn't even drink that whole beer, because it was still leaking pretty heavily.
He's a jackass on top of other things.
He wastes beer, and we're not cool with that.
Yeah, so I guess the idea is that he gets drunk and falls asleep in the car. Or no, Crispin Glover gets the car stuck. Anyway, we wake up in the morning, and Crispin Glover is in the back seat, and he just you see him kind of preparing, and then also he's just like, hey, wake up, the car's dead. Like, this is just this weird moment where you could just see him kind of mentally calculating to wake this man up in the front seat.
Yeah.
And then just they fight about which way to go through the desert and where
that, again, I just love how sure Crispin Glover is, to where, like, he has no idea where he is. He wasn't looking. He said he had no idea where they were on the map or anything, but he's like, the freeway's this way, and just points.
Yeah, he's like, no, this way. Or Purdue.
Yeah, Purdue was this way.
Yeah, I also love the night before when they're looking at the map, and he's like, no, there's supposed to be a highway over here. Like, that's a river.
He's like, river, whatever, yeah. It leads to the freeway.
And then, I like when they're looking at the map again, like, do you remember what the town's name was? The last town we drove by? He's like, I think it starts with a B. It's just like, well, that doesn't help. Lots of cities start with, like, Baltimore. Or Barcelona.
Barcelona.
And
I love Crispin Glover's response, like, I don't think it was Barcelona. It's like, of course it wasn't Barcelona. Barcelona is in Spain.
That's also another weird thing. Like, I don't know if just one of them, but it's Barcelona. It's not Barcelona.
Well, yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, I love the little times that, like, people mispronounce words.
Okay, yeah, that's one of the times I was like, I don't know if just no one caught that, or if they're supposed to be doing that. Did we pronounce Barcelona
I think they were supposed to be doing that, because that actually made me laugh quite a bit.
Yeah, no, I loved it. And so Crispin Glover gets in a huff and decides to take his cat his way to Bardu, or whatever the place is called, while Ed goes the other way. And I like that he kind of he's still in these ridiculous looking platforms walking through the desert.
Which I love. There are so many shots of this movie of him just, like, basically scaling mountainsides in these platform shoes,
carrying this huge fucking ice chest
just
with a
like
dead cat
no
in
way
it.
he could keep balance like that. But I guess, like, in the shots you can't really see exactly what he's walking on, so I guess they put a board down or something for him to walk on. But it's just hilarious.
Whatever. Yeah, he's amazing that he can actually manage that, because his feet must have been killing after this movie. Oh my god. So they get back together. A lot of this movie, so that we don't get bogged down in this, is them walking sometimes together, sometimes in different directions in the desert. That is what a lot of this movie is. So let's avoid talking about that, because I will fall into it. So they end up seeing what they think is a house in the distance.
I will say one thing. On their little trek towards this house that they see in the distance, we get a really funny scene that I enjoyed, is that obviously they're out in the desert, they have no provisions, they have no food, they have no water or anything, and they stop for a moment, and Crispin Glover takes like the Dr. Scholl's foot pad out of his shoe, and he like drains it into his mouth to get liquid for. Don't throw up, Cole. That's okay.
I almost vomited during the movie when I saw that. I was like, oh my god, that is far too much.
Well, Crispin Glover is resourceful, and he's not going to dehydrate for anybody. He drinks the melted ice out of his dead cat cooler.
Yeah. So yeah, the whole time Crispin Glover's carrying around his dead cat in a cooler at various stage of defrost.
Yeah, and you know what? He's gonna stay hydrated. Fuck you.
Yeah, fuck that. And 1 second, let me.
Well, I got something, because as they're walking to this house that they see in the distance that they think might have a phone, they kind of stop for a moment and have a little back and forth, kind of under some rocks, and basically they start talking about the cat and stuff, and Crispin Glover basically shows him a picture of the cat that he has. And it's Crispin Glover holding the cat almost like a baby, but again, it's just like this weird animated claymation style cat. And it's such an awkward picture, but then he's like, tries to give it back to him, and he's like, no, you keep it. I have 23 more of those.
That was awesome.
And he explains how his cat lost his tail. He was just like, it was a fan. And then Ed starts going, oh, fans, man, they're dangerous. And Crispin Glover goes, there were 12,498 fan-related fan-related incidents in 1988.
Awesome. I also like when they're talking, he's like, my cat liked music. He's like, music? Was he into Cat Stevens? I love that little jolly laugh.
It's like, no, Mahler.
Yeah, Mahler. Just like, you ever see that movie Cat People? They worship cats instead of dogs. It's crazy.
It's like, no, but I saw part of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. And I don't know what movie he was talking about, but I wanted to look this up before we did this, and I forgot.
I looked it up.
Cat Ballou.
Cat Ballou, yeah.
He's like, have you ever seen Cat Ballou? That's a heavy film.
It is listed in AFI's top 100. It's a Western comedy. It has Jane Fonda in it, and then I didn't look at it anymore. And the poster is this weird poster of like an animated girl looking between her legs, like bent over looking between her legs and her blousers or whatever the fuck those things are called underneath.
So
that's what I know about Cat Ballou.
It's like a Wild West Barbarella.
But apparently it is a respected movie. I was surprised to learn, because I thought I was sure it was just going to be this stupid movie that only this guy would know, of course.
That's why I really wanted to look it up, because I expected it to just be like the worst movie ever.
Yeah, no, apparently not.
Oh, well, that's sad.
Yeah. So, and he keeps telling Crispin Glover the organization could be so helpful for a guy like you. You know, you don't have it figured out. You gotta move on from your cat.
Yeah, and Crispin Glover constantly, anytime he says anything, he's like, will you shut up about the organization already?
Yeah.
Just shut up.
Yeah, just everyone. This movie could have been written by like 6th graders, like, because everyone is just telling everyone to shut up. And like, no, don't call me an ignoramus. You shut up.
You're the ignoramus.
Yeah,
that's why I think like either Crispin Glover is like a teenager or he has like Asperger's or something.
He definitely
autistic,
has.
Yeah.
He has to be slightly autistic because he finds repetitive motions calming or repetitive action. Like, there's a lot of autism going on, or autistic tendencies going on in this movie. So they get to what they thought was a house, and it's just a rundown trailer that someone has scrawled, Andy Warhol sucks a big one on the window, and Crispin Glover...
He laughs to no end.
He thinks it is so hilarious, and he doesn't even know who Andy Warhol is. Like, he just thinks that sucks a big one, I guess, is the joke for him.
Yeah, exactly, and he just thinks it's the most hilarious thing ever, but then Ed kind of sticks up for Andy Warhol.
Yeah.
It's like, no, he was famous. He painted soup cans.
Sounds like a failure fraud. Hey, Ed, you're a failure fraud. Like, he does this really weird, like, almost infantile way of, like, edging people on.
He does, and then just continuously laughing, and it's pretty funny, but I love this because it has that, and even that whole Andy Warhol sucks a big one comes into play later, and even in the description, when I read the longer description of the movie, it says, like, they travel through the desert and meet, like, an odd critic of Andy Warhol. I thought that was going to be a character we meet in the movie, but not at all.
He's a silent character. He is there in spirit. You just feel him through the movie. he makes his presence known in other ways.
Maybe
like
this
God.
movie is just way more smart than I could ever imagine or understand, and this is all just like a big piece commenting on Andy Warhol.
This movie
and the kind of movies that he made.
This movie is either smarter than I am, or this movie is stupider than I think. I'm not sure which one, but it's one or the
other. I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt, though, because I actually did enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed the hell out of it, but I don't know what this movie was really trying to do in the end. Like, looking back on it, I have no idea what the fuck this movie, what its purpose was, except to get Crispin Glover to act weird for a couple of hours. Like, that's mostly what this movie is. And so Crispin Glover pisses off Ed by just being like, you're a failure fraud. And Ed's just like, no wonder you don't have any friends. And they split up. Ed ends up finding the car. And it turns out Crispin Glover had sabotaged the car for whatever reason.
I don't think he sabotaged it. I think it's just something that he didn't notice. Like a wire underneath when they crashed just like came undone or something. And he just didn't know.
Okay.
I didn't think that he had sabotaged it.
That could, I mean, but wires aren't cut like that naturally. That's why I figured it had to be sabotage. Because it wouldn't make sense for a wire to, I mean, who knows? So, not explored, we'll never know. That's the mystery, the true mystery of Ruben and Ed, is what the hell was going on with that wire. So, Ed gets to leave, he goes back, he finds a gas station.
Which, by the way, I love the opening shot when we see the establishment of the gas station. Because the first thing you see is just this sign as he's driving up, and it says, "Hell yes, we're open."
It's "Hell yes, ellipsis, we're open." Like they're not very excited about the "hell yes" part, but they're really excited about the "we're open" part. I thought that was a funny sign. And he goes to the phone and he immediately calls his ex-wife, who once again is like, the problem is not the problem.
He had just called her the day before too, so I don't know what he was expecting to accomplish with that.
Yeah, no,
which, by the way, she has one of my favorite lines from the movie, and it's another one of the things where they randomly mispronounce a word. But she's like, I want a breadwinner, Ed, and I'm not talking about Wonder Bread. I'm talking about croissants.
Because I only vaguely heard that. I was like, I guess she just said the name of a 90s company, but no, she said...
It's like, no, she was trying to say croissants, but she was like, I mean croissants.
I want them croissants, that expensive bread.
I was like, oh, Karen Black still got it.
Yeah. Oh, and then we meet the two people, and I didn't write any of their banter down, but man, I love the
gas station couple, but I will have to say she is far too hot for him.
Oh, by far, but they just they argue about, because apparently you could die of radiation in the desert, or you can fall down mine holes.
You can get bitten by a snake, but probably more likely by a scorpion, because there's like thousands of more scorpions than there are snakes.
Yes. and it all depends on which way you're heading, which neither of them can either agree which way any of these dangers
arguing
are.
Over directions, yeah.
Like, this is it's
I don't know who those two people are, and I don't even think they're like known actors or anything, but they give the best performances in the movie. Their back and forth was phenomenal.
Oh, and the way that girl plays it so deadpan, like she just does it awesomely. Like
she just plays it like this is the stupidest man in the world, but I'm with him for some reason.
She just has these little quirks. Like, for as little screen time as they had, they do a lot with what they were given. I love that couple. I wish I want a whole spin-off series. They deserve their own sitcom. and so Ed decides to leave, leaving Ruben in the desert, where Ruben has found a hubcap.
And he made it into a hubcap cap.
He does, and
it's a new thing, man. It's all the rage now.
I don't even know where he got the straps for it, but I'm not even questioning it, because that's an awesome hat.
It is.
And this is where he has his the craziest hallucination, where he hallucinates that he's in an inner tube in a like a lake with platform shoes
that keep growing, because the first shot it's like his POV, like looking at his feet up in the thing, like they're way above him, and they're like kind of long, a little bit longer than they are regularly, and then every time it cuts back to him laying on the inner tube, they just grow substantially.
Yeah, and we see his animatronic cat as it's water skiing, and it just looks like it's having the time of its life, and the person driving the boat is the girl from the magazine poster tear out he had at the beginning of the movie. And And she, I love that she's screaming, "You really are the king, the king, the king!" And then
I love you, Ed, or I love you, Ruben.
Yeah, I love you, Ruben. And then Ruben, his only line is, "My cat can eat a whole watermelon."
Which is the only thing I wrote down about that sequence. I was just like, the best sequence in the whole movie.
Oh, by far.
I love you, Ruben. My cat can eat a whole watermelon.
Such an insane line. Love it. And then, okay. So, there's this whole scene where, I love the next scene too, where Ed, he's kind of arguing with himself, like, oh, he'll find his way back. Blah, blah, blah. Like, he finally decides, no, I'm not going to leave Ruben to die in the desert. He turns around, and he has his own little fantasy sequence.
Yeah, a murder fantasy.
A murder fantasy where he gets manic. Like, he just looks like, he looks manic as shit.
Yeah, he imagines running over his ex-wife to where she's stuck on his front bumper. Yeah. But apparently doing so gets him so worked up that he starts to have a heart attack.
Yeah, and it has been mentioned, there were a couple times earlier, and I noted,
I got a heart condition.
I got a heart condition. So yeah, it's like, okay, he's going to have a heart attack at some point during this movie. And so Ruben finds a cave where he says something and there's an echo, and then he finds some weird hieroglyphic
You want to know what he
type
says?
Things.
He says echo.
Yeah.
And it echoes.
And then doesn't he whisper like echo people, and then he passes out? Isn't that the order of operation?
Yeah, because he hits his head coming into it.
Yeah, and so Ed miraculously finds this cave because he sees the hubcap shining from out of nowhere. So just another, like, no reason this should have ever happened, but
it did.
Whatever, it does.
Let's move on.
And so Ed goes up to the cave, and Ruben's just, he can't talk, he's just like, echo people, and Ed immediately is like, echo people, good lord, get up. Like, he's freaking out, like, what are you freaking out about, echo people? Like, what is...
But again, this is followed by one of those kind of, like, very sweet, sad character moments, because it gets to the point where they finally, like, Ed's gonna bury Ruben's cat for him, and Ruben is just kind of like, he's crying throughout this scene.
But he's also trying to, like, explain to him through hand motions what he wants done. So he's just kind of like, So
it's very funny, but it's also very sweet at the same time. And even Ed is trying his hardest to, like, feel for him and, like, bury the cat for him so he will be okay, so that he will leave with him.
Yeah, Ed he's extremely sweet about it. He buries the cat. He's like, see that, and look, if this doesn't say here lies whatever the cat's name was, and I don't know what does.
Simon.
It puts the stake into it. And I just love that Ruben's still kind of sitting there, kind of whimpering. He's like, kind of pointing. He's like, dear Lord. He starts giving a prayer.
He has to have a eulogy for him.
He has to give a quick eulogy. And he starts getting pissed off at Ruben during the eulogy. He's like, Simon was a really good friend to Ruben. Because who could be friends with... Anyway, like, he's about to start making fun of him again before he moves
And Ruben loved this cat. The end.
Amen. And so then we watch Ed as he's dragging Ruben out of the cave, and he's still like, he's trying to figure out their way. Like, does any of this look familiar to you? He's like, my cat can eat a whole watermelon. Like, bullshit.
It's like, echo people. Stop talking about the echo people. There are no echo people. I've told you that 15 times.
Before Ruben passes out, his last line is, echo people worship cats. I love that echo people just seems like such a throwaway line, but they establish the hell out of it after it happens. Like, they keep going on with the
this
echo
10-minute sequence from, like, when Ed comes back for him into the cave, and then what's about to happen, like, you see, like, they actually have become friends now. Yeah. Because then, actually, Ed starts to have a heart attack and he passes out. Then when he comes to, Ruben is the one dragging him through the desert now, and I feel like, oh, they've actually bonded. They're looking out for each other now.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, again, a sweet moment.
It's kind of God, what's that movie? It's kind of a Harold and Maude situation without the sex, I suppose.
A little bit.
Why not? So we get back to the gas station. We find out that Ed's being hunted by police, And their car now has Andy Warhol sucks a big one spray painted on the hood. The person, that's why that person, I guess, could be considered a character, because he did something while they were away.
Exactly. It wasn't just an abandoned thing where someone wrote that. No, there's someone out there that we never see that's running around spray painting Andy Warhol sucks a big one on anything he can get his hands on.
There is a desert person that really hates Andy Warhol and is out to get the message across to anyone he comes across.
And I like that touch that, like, we never see it. It's something that's referred to twice in a way. But I really kind of wanted to see that character.
Yeah, because they are lurking out there. That's the other unanswered question. You know what? Maybe it's the gas station people.
I kept thinking that. I kept thinking that, but I don't know. It doesn't sit quite right. But it could be.
And getting back, there's one more gas station person scene that I absolutely love. When Ed gets back to the phone and he borrows a quarter from the guy to call the police. And he does the weirdest explanation of how, because they think he kidnapped Ruben, or his mother called in to say he kidnapped him.
It's like, no, we just went to go bury a cat.
We went to go bury a cat in the desert. It's like, is Ruben hurt? Like, oh, he's all sorts of messed up. Like, this guy is saying the exact wrong things you want to tell the police.
And then he's like, you should be hunting the real criminals. Like the guy that painted Andy Warhol sucks a big one on my car.
Yeah.
I love how the gas station guy.
The gas station guy's like, well, that ought to straighten it out. and then it doesn't cut like that scene should have. It lingers for another 3 to 4 seconds on them just standing there awkwardly. I was like, this is absolutely amazing. Oh, loved it. But that's the last we see of the gas station people.
Oh, we lost them too soon.
We lost them far too soon.
So they finally decided to just, like, get the hell out of there, because they realized he realized he fucked up even more by having that conversation, so they need to get back to the city.
Yeah, so they make it back. He's like, oh, we need some gas.
Which, by the way, this is a completely unnecessary scene. I mean, I know it's the big character piece, but the whole thing is that they're stopping there to go to the ATM to get money, to get gas, which they are almost out of. This scene plays out. They do not go to the ATM and get money. No. They leave and apparently have plenty of gas to get to where they're going.
Yeah, this is essentially so Ed can have a confrontation with his ex-wife and her new fiance.
Fiance?
I didn't even catch that one. So they take a turn on this street. He's like, we need to get gas. Like, hey, this is my old neighborhood. Like, don't you think you would have recognized this sooner? Like, how long does it take you to recognize
it's like,
where you are
I'm traveling to my old neighborhood. I know this neighborhood.
No, but he all of a sudden realizes, hey, I used to live here. Anyway, he gets out and he sees that his wife is already at the ATM with her new fiance. And so he decides to jump in the bushes to hide from her. And Crispin Glover's just in the car like, Ed, what are you doing? What are you doing
in the bushes?
What you doing in the bushes, Ed? What? You want me to be quiet? It's like this scene should play so much stupider. But I feel like it's so much funnier just because of who these characters are. Like, in a normal stupidly played character, I wouldn't have cared. But since Crispin Glover is the most adorable autistic child ever, this is amazing.
It is hilarious. So basically he has the confrontation with his ex-wife, played by Karen Black. And basically she sees him like all dirty and messed up in the bushes. And he's like, oh, I was looking for my cat.
And she immediately finds into you know what your problem is, and just goes,
your problem is that you won't admit you have a problem.
Yeah, and she's in the bushes, and I don't know, she just starts going batshit on everyone in her vicinity, and she
because her guys keeps being like, oh, okay, let's go. Don't you ever rush me.
You know what your problem is? You rush me.
Yeah, it's like, you have a problem too, mister.
It gets slapstick.
I love it,
she starts
because
hitting people with purses.
Yeah, she does that and swings at Ed and misses and then hits her guy, which I love how he's like, who the hell's this guy? She's like, oh, this guy? He's my new fiance. Your fiance.
Oh man, hilarious. And yeah, she hits her new fiance in the nose. And I love that while they're still fighting, the ex-wife and Ed, he's in the background, he's like, I'm bleeding. Yeah, I'm bleeding back here.
I'm bleeding now. I'm gonna go.
I'm gonna go.
But she continues to verbally assault Ed as she's leaving and getting in the car. Oh, and this angers Glover.
Ed is Glover's new cat. And yeah, he gets really pissed off. He starts shaking, and like she's trying to roll up the window. And this really, once again, another extremely slapstick scene of her trying to make the window roll up faster. Like it keeps cutting between him shaking and her kind of like pulling the window, like oh.
And I love it because still nothing happens. He kicks the shoe and it hits the window, and she's like ah, and then they drive off. But it's like he's stuck up for Ed. That's his friend.
Yeah, that is. And Ruben starts doing his awesome laugh, which I won't even try to approximate. But he starts laughing. He's like, it's funny. At the end of the day, you didn't take one person to that seminar. And Ed just like.
Well, the thing is that they're kind of laughing together at first, and they're just like, this thing, and Ed's kind of making fun of how stupid the whole organization is.
Yeah.
But then. Yeah, Ruben just takes it one step further, and it's like, and you couldn't even get one person into that stupid seminar.
Yeah.
Just laughing maniacally at him, and he's like, oh no, you fucked up. So then we get Wolf of Wall Street 2, The Wolfening.
And he's out there, he's like, people who say that money can't buy happiness just don't know where to shop. And I love the crowd reaction where they're just kind of half-heartedly laughing. They're like, I love that nobody's really that invested in it.
Well, they bust in and everything, and kind of after a long big hubbub, they sit down. And when the guy starts his seminar back up, he goes to the projector, which has a dude in his bathrobe drawn in like crayon, and it's just like miserable loser is the name on it. And he's like, hey, who's the biggest loser in this room? And Ruben just leans over. He's like, raise your hand, Ed.
I love that. Because he's not even laughing about it. He's just like, oh, come on, this is you,
it's
right?
Like, it's you. Raise your hand.
Yeah, you're obviously the biggest loser here. Come on. And head honcho of the organization, whoever the guy is like Ed's just pushing his buttons the whole time. He's like, no, I paid my $3,000. I'm gonna stay. Like, so apparently the seminar costs $3 goddamn grand. And they get to the who am I part of it, and the head guy's just like, who are you? And Ruben stands up and he's like, I am the king of the echo people. And then just dead silence, and it cuts away.
But it cuts to Ed, and he's like, no, the kid's king of the echo people.
And so they get kicked out, and once more they're having a bunch of conversations.
Well, I like the fact that it cuts to the leader of the seminar coming outside and seeing his car. That is, of course, like, there's been a rock through the windshield that says Andy Warhol sucks a big one on the hood, as well as it's all beat up and stuff. And he just starts freaking out. And he's just like, where's your car? We have to find him. To the other guy with him. And he's like, I don't have a car. Where's your car? And he's like, this is my car. And it's like, I thought you said you had like a Mercedes and a Jaguar. And he's like, shut up. It's like, so it really is just a scam. This is his one car, and it's like a shitty Cadillac.
Yeah, no, it's obviously a pyramid scheme, but I love so they get pissed so you think that there's going to be this whole end scene with a showdown between head honcho and Ed, and then we go to Ed and Ruben kind of talking, and they're doing a lot of bonding now where
it's just such a comical way, just bonding over the silliest things, because they're like, oh, I'm hungry.
Like, he's like, you're not vegetarian, are you? I haven't met a vegetarian I like. And Ruben's just like, I hate vegetarians.
I know, they're so picky.
Yeah, and new age music. and
new age music, that'll make a man sick.
Yeah, he's like, wait, how do you feel about Republicans?
And there's this long pause. You think that he's gonna be like, there's gonna be some conflict. He's like, I am a Republican. He's like, me too.
Yeah. And so that's how they bond. And so the
which, I'm sorry, but Ruben saying that he's a Republican made me laugh so fucking hard.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like it, no. And them, like, the head honcho sees them in the alley. He's like, quick, cut them off at the other block. And so you think they're about to have this big showdown. But no, because a cop sees the car, so he tries to stop it, and they just crash. And that's the end of that plot line.
Yeah, well, they crash, but they kind of, Ruben and Ed, they stop there, and they're like, what was that? And then he's like, it was a wreck. And he's like, see what I'm talking about? Life, it's a crazy thing.
Yeah, life just happens.
Yeah, and they start walking off, but the best part about it is they're just walking and kind of, again, bonding / making fun of each other a little bit. But then there's like an alley cat that's meowing, and then it starts following them as they walk away. So now they have a new kitty friend.
Yeah, and also like the second to last line of the movie, I think, is if you took a look at yourself, you would realize you need a lot of help. And Ruben just sits for a second. You're bald. And that's just kind of it. That's the end of that argument.
Best of friends.
And the last line of the movie, right before credits come out, is think about it. Just a random voiceover. And I couldn't pin who said it. Just someone says, think about it, goes to credits.
I think it was Ed that said that.
I think so. But it wasn't Ed talking. Like, it wasn't.
Well, it wasn't shown like that because we just saw their silhouettes walking away, and they have a kitty that has now joined them and is following them. So they have a new cat. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's Ed that said, think about it, and then it went to credits.
But it's played as if that was a tagline of the movie, and it's not. Like that.
No, actually, the tagline of the movie was, it was something like this. It was like, Ed's going to save Ruben's life, and then he's going to kill him.
That sounds horrible. That is nothing like what the movie is. So that was the weirdness that is Ruben and Ed. I loved it. I had such a great time.
I really did too,
movie.
but I have to admit, the entire time, especially the first half hour or so, I kept being like, fucking, what is this? Nothing is happening. I was like, man, the last hour must be like this big thing where things actually happen. But no. Yep. And throughout the entire movie, even at the end, I was just like, all of that was completely pointless, but I really fucking enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's like an art house movie that doesn't have anything to say. Like, it's not. It's like I will say though.
Let's go back to the end of that dream sequence though, because I think that little scene might have said more about the character of Ruben than anything else in this movie. That's
true. So after this dream sequence, Ruben kind of snaps out of his dream and goes into like a recalled memory or something, which is essentially the mullet kid from earlier that made fun of him. And he's like, here, kitty, kitty, here, kitty, kitty. And you see that he has Ruben's, he has a boat in the pool that is dragging around Ruben's cat's dead body.
Yeah, it almost really kind of like it plays into that whole, his fantasy scene of seeing the cat water ski.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like he tied it and he's like, oh, I guess that kitty can't swim so well. So it made me wonder, like, is that what happened to the cat? Is there some deep-seated, like, psychological, like, shit going on in his head that he just isn't ready to deal with? Or maybe is that, like, he's playing it, he's blaming on that kid that it seems like he didn't have that much of a relationship with, and maybe he did that himself, trying to make it water ski? I don't know. That just seemed like that was a big statement in the movie that was just kind of, like, brushed over really quickly.
It was very strange, and yeah, it made me question for a second, like, maybe he isn't autistic, maybe he's just really fucked up from seeing this neighborhood kid drowning his cat.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that's what happened, or if he's just, like, having a fantasy about that, but if that's what happened, like, fuck, that actually makes a lot of sense for why he acts that way and doesn't want to go outside and doesn't want to be around people.
Yeah, it's, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this movie too much. I had fun watching it, but I don't.
But the more I think about it, I don't know, the more things don't make sense to me because I'm not sure how much of it is intended and how much of it is just like trying to fill time.
Yeah.
Because I think this is like his first movie. I think maybe he did a short before this. So I'm not sure if like he had no budget, he like had a basic idea and was trying to, create it into a feature-length film, or if everything was actually intended. If so, this is one of the smartest fucking movies I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, like I said, this movie is either smarter than me or it's a lot dumber than I think it is, but it's not. I don't feel like I'm appreciating it the way it's supposed to be appreciated at the current moment.
Yeah, but I will say it is definitely worth watching. I definitely enjoyed it. Just Crispin Glover's performance alone, and really like all the main actors' performances were just really great, and that's what made it worth watching.
Yeah, definitely, if nothing else, for Crispin Glover and the gas station people.
There are long stretches of this movie where nothing really happens and it's not that entertaining, but as soon as like that starts to drag on you just a little bit and you start to feel the wear of the movie, then it comes back with like a great performance piece or a good line and it saves it.
Yeah, and it's only it's an hour and a half, and it
not even an hour and a half. It was like an hour.
It's like 126.
26, yeah.
And it really it filled the time well. I never got too bored with it. Like, there were definitely times I was like, okay,
I think
I've seen him.
Mostly I kind of, it was within the first like 40 minutes where I kind of got bored a couple of times, but then once I started realizing what the movie was, it started happening less and less, and I was just kind of invested in what was happening to these two characters.
See, I wasn't bored just because there were people barking at this man and growling at him. I was like, this has to mean something. Like, there is something here, but no, nothing there.
Well, that's the thing. That's the kind of the beauty of it, because seeing things like that and seeing little touches like that, I immediately want to think about it and think about what it means to the director, like what that was there for. But I think the thing is, it's almost like playing a joke on us, because all these things are in there, all these elements, and they really don't mean anything. And at the end of the day, nothing happened in the movie. Nothing really came of it. So it's kind of all meaningless. So you want to try to rationalize it and see what it means, but there's no point in doing that because it meant nothing. So again, might be just smarter than we are.
You know what? I think you're onto something. That
especially the Andy Warhol thing.
Yeah, especially calling up Andy Warhol. That's obviously, I think that is a take on art for art's sake, because a lot of the shots, like really beautiful shots, like the beer can one, really beautiful, but it does nothing for the film. Like Ed walking through the middle of that park when there's sidewalks on either side.
That was a beautiful scene as well.
But it means nothing.
They even had that day to night changeover of like the sun going overhead, fast forwarded.
And so there's all these things that are essentially red herrings, like the people barking and growling, like something you think you need to think about, but you don't. And the very last line in the movie is think about it.
I like it.
The classic tale of an odd couple that have to go bury a dead cat in the desert so they can make it to a seminar. Heartwarming, really. Join us next week when we bring you the Richard Kelly flop, The Box. What is The Box? Well, it's about a box. Anyway, we hope to see you again here at Celluloid.